So I'm here with Mackenzie Clench of Mackenzie Clench Creative, and he is bringing a whole new world of writing and creativity to our Facebook feeds, but also into his own writing genre. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your niche of writing?
Sure. Well, obviously, my name is Mackenzie, but you already said. I'm bringing a niche. My niche in writing is really one that already existed. It just, you don't see it very much in copywriting. You don't see it a lot in business. Is that I put humanity into my writing. I speak to humans and not just to customers or to an avatar or something that sort of model. I speak in my writing as those who have read it, you have my condolences, have noticed that it's very based a lot on humor. It uses a lot of recondite references, pop culture references, things like that, because I don't buy into the idea that something that informs has to be boring, right? I mean, we've all been to high school. You know what that looks like, right? It doesn't need to be. You can inform and inspire and educate and do all that wonderful stuff and have fun too. So that's where I differentiate, I guess. It also makes it really it's also really helpful when dealing with things like people copying your work. Because if anyone copies anything I write, it's pretty obvious because my writing style is so unique that good luck.
Oh, that's so cool.
You're welcome to try.
So you've got a few ebooks out, am I right?
I've got one out and I'm working on two more. I shouldn't be working on two at the same time, but I'm working on two more with a third idea in the works as well. But yes, I do have one. It's a collection of my essays called Of Cabbages and Kings, available at Finder websites near you. And I'm working on a food book called A Fork in the Road, Love Letters to the World of Food. Not a cookbook, but a book about food. And I'm also working on a humorous Canadian history book called Canadialand, A Brief History of the True North Strong and Free Sing. That's good. That's going to be coming up after the food book. They're sort of in order now. And the third one is going to be a collection of my Facebook posts. Those of you who know me from Facebook will know that every day I'm constantly posting these little missives that I put up for people, and I'm going to be compiling those in a book at the behest of a friend of mine. I don't have a name for that yet, but I'm leaning toward calling it All Too Human, because that seems kind of appropriate for the kind of things I talk about. It's like my first book, of Cabbages and Kings. It's just completely random collection of topics. I sort of opine on just about any topic that you can imagine, and a few you probably never even thought of. So that's fun. So I've got a bunch of books coming, but I have one out at the moment.
Fabulous. Okay, that's really cool. So yeah, I love reading your posts, and I'm very drawn to it because the edge is there. It's definitely something that makes you kind of think, and I look forward to reading your work every day so that I can get my brain filled up with something that's highly creative and makes me think. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's always a fun thing for me to go and look for your posts. So you have branched off and started doing a few more things then. Well, I guess you're doing your mentoring and coaching as well as private copywriting, which is actually very different from your work. You take on the voice of another person when you copywrite. Is that right?
Yes. That's I like to put it this way. I once saw an interview with a special effects guy, does special effects for films, and he said, "If you see our work, we failed." And that struck me because I thought, that's really interesting. It's like seeing the strings that are holding Superman in the air. It ruins the whole effect. copywriting is very similar. I have to take on the voice of my client, whoever that is, and I have to speak like them. So if my clients, if someone looks at my client's website that I did and said, "Oh, you hired a copywriter," I didn't do my job properly, because I don't sound like my client anymore. It means I sound like me now. So my job is to be invisible. Basically, is to sort of get into the head of my client, figure out how they talk, the words they use, the way they put things, and then write that material speaking to their audience. So I have to not only know the client, but I have to know the client's audience too. Who are you speaking to? That's more the traditional marketing. Anyone who's into business marketing will know what I'm talking about there. When you know your audience, you know what age group are they, what do they like, that sort of thing. But for me, it's even more important that I get into the head of my client, because again, it has to sound like them. If it doesn't sound like them, it's not authentic anymore, and it's just not, it's going to fall flat. It's going to sound like you hired somebody, right? Yeah. And the problem with that is, the person looking at your website is reading it one way, cool. Then they meet you and you sound completely different. And okay, what happened? Where's the disconnect? And sometimes it can be a very serious disconnect, right? And that can throw off. It can throw off that developing relationship that you're developing with your audience. So
well, and I have to say, like I build websites, so I know that the whole design literally revolves around the copy. The words and the meat that's going inside of this website are, I think, the most important, because I could build a beautiful design, but if the words fall flat, they're out. I mean, you can only stay in pretty for so long, and then you're like, give me something to think about, please.
I've said this to clients before, and in fact, I've even written this in posts that I've done. So, what's the most important part of your website? Unless you're a photographer, it ain't the pretty pictures. I mean, people are coming for information. They need that knowledge, that whatever that is that you do, that information. They need those words, right? The design is absolutely important, because if you can't find the words because the design is terrible, it doesn't make any difference if you wrote, if you wrote War and Peace, no one's going to see it because the design was terrible, or it was difficult to navigate, or whatever. So they're both exceptionally important. Like, they're both really, really important. I know I spend on my post, sort of related, on my Facebook post, I spend as much time trying to find the perfect image to go with my text as I do writing the post. I'm obsessive about finding the right image, not too obvious, not like something that kind of has the right theme but doesn't. I'm very obsessive about that, because I know that's important. That ties into the message I'm trying, because the image is what you're going to see first anyway, before you ever read the text, because your brain's going to latch onto that. Then you go and read the text. So yeah. So I just wanted to avoid being all copy.
Yeah, no, it is definitely a marriage.
No. Yeah, definitely.
No, and you know what? I took your Storyteller program a while back, and I remember you saying something inside of that program, and it may not have been something that you thought was like really pinnacle, but you mentioned that when you write something, you take all of the pieces that must go in, like all of the information that has to go in, and then you take it and turn around and you style it so that the flow works, and you change out words and you structure sentences maybe a little differently so that it has now a tone. And that meant a lot to me, because I always felt like, okay, I didn't know how to start the project, but really starting the project, gathering the data. This is the data that needs to go in, now make it cool. So, because normally people will start out with make it cool. How do I do that? So it was really interesting to hear you say that. And so you are now offering a creative problem solving and writing mentoring programs, like two different kinds of programs.
The Storyteller, the one you took, was the prototype of Storyteller, which has now been completely revamped and totally rebuilt. Storyteller is just launched today, yay! Which is Monday, the 16th of July, depending on when people see this. That's now available. The Storyteller is basically creative writing program. That's really what it is. But we're not going to rehash our English classes from high school. We're not going to worry about dangling participles or futz around with splitting infinitives or anything like that. Grammar's easy. You can learn that anywhere. There's plenty of resources on the internet to learn grammar. What I'm trying to get people to do is connect to their inner storyteller, their inner creative. And for people, and part of the problem is that people say that people will say, well, I'm not a storyteller. Well, see, that's a story. You're telling yourself right now that you're not a storyteller. Yeah, see, you just, and in fact, they'll tell me like a 15-minute story about why they're not a storyteller. So you're doing a pretty good job so far. And right, so I'm trying to get people to, the purpose of this program is really to help them tap into that and realize that yes, you are a storyteller. You really are. Everything we do and say, and every object, person, circumstance, event is given a label, right? Apple, car accident, whatever, and then contextualized with a story. That's what stories do. Because if you walk up to someone and say, I saw an apple, where? How? Well, what happened? Like, did you see it on the ground? Like, what? Right? There's no context. Did you put the story around it? I saw an apple at the store. It was on the ground. That's a story now. Not a very interesting one, but a story nevertheless. So getting people to understand that and understand that you do it all the time, right? And it's simply a matter of taking it from air and putting it on paper. That's easy. That's the easy part. So that's what Storyteller does. It's 4 weeks. It takes people through that creative process. The creative problem solving program, which doesn't have a name yet, is going to be launching, I hope, next Monday, which is a week from today. So that's the 23rd of July, which hopefully it'll have a name by then. And that's going to be, that has nothing to do with writing. That is purely about taking the idea, the creativity. It's just a $5 word for problem solving. That's all it means. People are, and I know I can rant about this, so I'll keep it very brief, but people are terrified of the word creativity. I mean, they are absolutely mortified by it because they think creative, and they think artists, musicians, that's all creative, that's all creativity. But so is engineering, so is medicine, right? So is finding, creativity is just finding novel solutions to a problem. That's it. There's nothing more, right? It isn't a special gift that's only given to a certain group of people with wild eyes and interesting hair. It's for everybody does it. We're all creative. Okay, maybe not some Hollywood directors, but beyond that, we're all creative. So that's the purpose of that program, which will also be 4 weeks. Is just to get people to tap into their own creativity and learn how to use it in their everyday life, their business, and their day-to-day lives, whatever, to solve problems, come up with unique solutions to existing problems.
Oh, so. Perfect. No, that sounds really good, because some people do get trapped in that space where they have no idea how to take it from one, and then they're fighting that thing that they're like, well, I'm not creative. Yeah, you are, because you heard the idea. That is it, right? It's just being able to tap in and hear those ideas that are coming right to you. And they're so, like, sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with the arts, and I'm so glad that you're just focusing on that. That's wonderful. That's good.
It was true. I mean, engineering, architecture. Good Lord. I mean, how creative do you want? Everyone ever seen the Guggenheim? Like, how creative can you get? Right. So, I mean, and coming up with, again, just use architecture or engineering. The designer comes to you with these plans. You think, how the hell are we going to do that? How are we going to make that work in metal and steel and stone and whatever? That's where the creativity comes in, because now we have to come up with new processes for creating, for maybe you have to do concrete in a completely different way now. That makes it more flexible or more whatever. Creativity fits everywhere. It's not just an artistic thing. And I kind of want to get people out of that idea that it's only for the arts.
Yeah, and as entrepreneurs, we're always like building these businesses, and they need to be flexible, and they need to move and flex and flow with however we're trying to structure our business. And it looks different in every different situation, because we all have these different mad skills. But at the base of all of it is this belief that we can take an idea and transform it into something else. And I just believe we were brought here to create. So that's definitely where I sit. I live to create. Right. So
as I've said to people many, many times, you are a walking, talking, latte sipping engine of creation. Get over it, move on. Like you are. I mean, you just are. You know, there's only one group. Literally only one group who are not creative. They're called corpses. Aside from guest appearances on The Walking Dead, they don't really do a hell of a lot. All right, everyone else, we're creative, and you know, once we embrace that, you're right. Entrepreneurs. I mean, that's what an entrepreneur is. Coming up with novel solutions. How else are you going to differentiate yourself from the 400 other entrepreneurs who are doing similar work? Price? Really? Really? Are you going to have that race to the bottom? No. You know, benefits, okay, maybe, but it's really about, you know, coming up with and be able to make a bespoke solution to a client's problem, right? Being able to, every client is unique. Every problem, yes, they might be very similar superficially, but you know, every project I do as a writer is completely different, right? Yes, it might be a website or website content, but every website is different because every voice is different. So now I have to make something that's custom made, bespoke, if you will, right? And that's great. That's fantastic. That takes creativity.
Yes.
How do I say this in a way that's going to sound compelling to the audience? That still sounds like the client, and right. So
then, for your copywriting packages, you do website copy, you do full website copy, or just single page copy, right?
I can pretty much do anything. I created a package that for website content that's it's kind of this is a model of what it could look like, but it's infinitely adaptable. I mean, some people, because it has blog posts, some people don't have a blog, so you can take that out, put in something else. Like, it's infinitely adaptable. I also have a little miniature package that I created called About Page 911, which is really just about getting into the About page, ripping it apart, and making it perfect, because that's the one page everyone has trouble writing, talking about themselves. And I recently added a thing to it that also works for sales pages too. So sales page 911, same idea. So just a little package I whipped up quickly, but I can basically create a program, package, what have you, for just about anything. If it's written, I can probably come up with something to help someone with it. So it's very hard to put that on a website, because how do you say that? Just like, you know, what do you do? Well, what do you need? You know what I mean? If it's written, let's talk about it, and I'll see what I can do. There's very few things I'm going to turn down, besides maybe, you know, a book, because that's a bit of a big project. That would be a whole other animal. But like, you know, if somebody comes to me and says, well, I just want to do some press releases. Sure, absolutely. You know, let's get the information together. No problem. Right? Things like that. So any kind of writing like that is again, I sort of struggle with trying to figure out how to put that on the website, like how to say that, because they're not pre-packaged. You can't really pre-package these projects because they're all unique, right? I have no idea what that client over there needs. They do, or at least they know, or at least I think they know what they need. And once we sit down and talk, then I can figure it out and create something for them and go, oh, perfect. Yes, that's exactly what I need. So
yeah, because with so many, like, the different avenues that come with being an entrepreneur, so you've got your website copy, that's got to be on, but then you've also got your emails out to your public. You've got, you know, and even just the automated ones, those have to be fantastic. So, you know, those ones that you don't have to just generate just, you know, as your regular kind of broadcast, but those automated ones, I'd probably want those written by a copywriter just to make sure they're done, right? And then you've got your social media, where you're also putting stuff out and advertising your business. So yeah, I can definitely see how, yeah, your powers of awesomeness could be well used. So, is there anything else you'd like to add about any of your awesome things here?
Let's see. Well, actually, just to speak to your earlier point you made about, you said about how the way I write, like I write it, put the key pieces in first, and then go back and sort of stylize things. the reason I do that, and this is kind of important to bring up, because I use so much humor in my work, as you know, it's very easy to get carried away. And then you just joke, and then you get 4 paragraphs in and you realize you haven't made a point yet, right? You don't even know where you're going with this. Like, it's just this kind of ridiculous sort of, which is fine if all you're doing is trying to entertain someone and to make them laugh. But I try to, not sure if I succeed, but I try to make a point with the humor. The humor is just, I don't want to say window dressing, but it's more an accoutrement to the point that I'm trying to make. So that's why when I write an essay or a Facebook post or what have you, I call it writing it straight. So basically it's just approach it kind of like an academic paper. Just really dry, just sort of get straight to the point, conclusion, whatever. Then I go back and, okay, now how can I make this fun and interesting and not sound like a treatise that'll put you to sleep? That's where the jokes come in. The reference, take out any reference to people or person and replace them with humans, because I always call them humans, or my favorite, human flavored humans, which that sort of thing. Or just play with language. The thesaurus is my dearest friend. I would be lost without my thesaurus, because that's what I use to find all the obscure words. Not to make myself sound more intelligent. It's because I like language. I mean, I forget how many words are in the English language, and we use like 5% of them, most of us, like on a daily basis. Thousands of words left unused. Like, why? Like, why not just use everything? Yes, okay, occasionally. I admit sometimes I'll write Facebook posts and I'll write a word and go, oh, that's gonna piss some people off because they're gonna have to look that up. Just like, and I'll put it in there on purpose. Go, yeah, well, you're 3 inches from Google, so who cares? It's just like, come on, if you're reading this, you've got Google right there. You can look it up. And it's just fun to sort of play with language. But that's how I do that. That avoids, and it's a good piece of advice for anyone who wants to write things with humor in it. Write it straight first, then add the humor and the other stuff. So that way you don't lose your point. So your point's still in there somewhere, but you can put all the sort of the flowery bits all around it.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that information has really helped me on my writing journey, because I was so timid to start writing, and now I've just really taken a big leap into really connecting with the words that I am saying and how meaningful they really truly are to the person that is reading them, because you will have to honor the reader or they'll leave.
There's nothing worse. This is probably, I read this once in Strunk and White. I don't know if you're probably not familiar with Strunk and White. Strunk and White wrote Elements of Style. It's like a 700-800-year-old book or something. I don't know how old it is. It's very old, but it's what all writers point to. They give it to all copywriters and stuff. I disagree with about 95% of it, but that's just me. But one of the things they do say is that nothing good ever comes of writing that insults the reader's intelligence or treats them like they're stupid. And I completely agree with them. That's absolutely true. You always have to, which is why I kind of write the way I do, is that as much as I might jokingly say, oh, this will piss someone off, I don't buy into the idea of dumbing down writing. I think and that's what it is. I know there are copywriters and people in marketing, the marketing intelligentsia, who will argue that, oh no, it's making it easier for everyone. You're dumbing it down. You're treating everyone like they're idiots. Okay, we're not stupid. Especially now with Google, with Google right in front of you, you can look something up if you're not sure. Like, why don't we assume people are smarter than they are?
Yeah.
Right. And even if for some reason they don't understand something, if they see a word, they see a phrase, they don't get it, they can look it up. Bang! They just learned something. Holy crap! You just wow! So now you've made a point and you taught somebody something. I don't see a problem here, right? So this idea that everything has to be at a 5th grade level, I believe it is. I believe that's the standard for copywriting. Yeah, I've said many times that I'm pretty sure that the marketing intelligentsia, St. Dawn of Draper and Our Lady of Perpetual Brand Awareness, would absolutely have kittens if they read anything that I write, because it just doesn't follow that model. But sorry, I'm rambling now. Your point was to honor the reader, and you're absolutely right. You have to treat the reader like they're intelligent. And I do. I happen to think my readers are smarter than that, right? Are smarter than, probably smarter than they think they are. I think they're a lot smarter.
Yeah, and that it's always a breath of fresh air when you get to read something that, is really well written, and you will follow it to the end. There are no too long didn't read when it's intelligently written.
That's a rant in and of itself. You're
Yeah.
right. You're absolutely right. Make it compelling and they'll stay. No, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, well, it was so nice to talk to you today, Mackenzie.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.